This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. New Jersey's community colleges, aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 66 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, NJBIA recently held its annual public policy forum headlined by 5 candidates for governor in New Jersey, and the conversations dealt with policy over politics. And as you'll hear, Jack Ciattarelli and Bill Spadea from the Republican side, and Steve Fulop, Sean Spiller, and Steve Sweeney from the Democrat side have no shortage of ideas to improve New Jersey's economy and business standing. Have a look.
And I think the way to make people believe and know they could be successful here in New Jersey is, number one, adopt Delaware's bylaws for corporate governance. Nevada did it about a dozen years ago. It's been hugely successful in Nevada. So let's adopt Delaware's bylaws for corporate governance. Let's cut the business tax, as Pennsylvania did, in half. Let's put a capital gains tax rate in place. Let's allow for the carry forward of capital losses. Let's not tax the first $100,000 of business income on a sole proprietorship. Let's not have payroll taxes on the first $100,000 of payroll for a sole proprietorship. Let's not tax the gain on the sale of a family-owned business. Those are all fiscally responsible. As an MBA CPA and someone who's been a 2-time business owner, as were my parents and my grandparents, I've experienced all these things. Those are all fiscally responsible things that would change the perception of New Jersey overnight. The other thing is the labor force. I think there needs to be, and there will be under Governor Ciattarelli, a more dynamic relationship between the Department of Labor and the Department of Education. The Department of Education, the Department of Labor should be telling the Department of Labor, and my Department of Commerce will be telling the Department of Education, what are the fields in which we are seeing a drought? Where do we need more people to go into these fields so that employers can have the workforce that they need? I mean, these are some very practical things that other states have done. With regard to the brain drain, dirty little secret about New Jersey. We do a great job of graduating our K through 12 students, but those that go out of state to college, New Jersey leads the nation in the fewest that come back. Missouri put in a program that I love. Okay, if you go to Missouri from out of state, you go to one of their state colleges, of course you're paying out of state tuition. But subsequent to graduation, if you have 3 years of W-2 wages from a Missouri employer, guess what Missouri does? It reimburses you what the difference was between in-state and out-of-state tuition. I love that idea. How simple is that? To get people from out of state that attend college here to stay here after they graduate from one of our colleges. And by the way, if you're a New Jersey resident who stays here after you graduate, how about the first year of W-2 wages is income tax free? I mean, I believe these are all fiscally responsible and they're compelling ideas that can change the perception of New Jersey overnight and give innovators and entrepreneurs confidence that they could be successful right here in New Jersey.
When Governor Christie left office, the budget was about $35 billion. Last year, we saw a budget of more than $56 billion. New Jersey has an enormous spending problem. And the problem with the spending, which of course is passed on to everyone, your businesses, your customers, your homeowners, everyone is paying more than what would be considered their fair share. And then you have to ask, what are you getting in return? So a couple of things on the tax side. We've got to cut taxes in order to stimulate economic growth. Not only should we cut our corporate business tax down to 4% or lower, I think we ought to go back to a great idea from former Congressman Jack Kemp, talked about enterprise zones, create enterprise zones in our urban areas where we offer zero taxes in terms of corporate tax to bring businesses in. We should have a governor that can get on the phone and start cold calling businesses across the country to say, come to New Jersey, we want you, we've got the tax program for you. But then let's look at the spending side, because we can talk about the gimmicks that are out there, whether we cut the sales tax by 1/8 of a point, or whether or not we offer the Stay NJ program, which is really just taking money from here and putting it over here at a cost of more than $2 billion a year. We can't afford any more gimmicks. We've got to cut the taxes and we've got to cut our spending. But then you have to ask, how do you cut the spending? Well, take a look at just the illegal immigration problem. You're looking at a $7 billion cost a year to New Jersey because we have nearly 900,000 illegals in our state. You're paying for that. $6.2 billion in Medicaid payments. You're paying for that. So the first thing we've got to do is end the sanctuary state. We've got to rescind that 2018 sanctuary state executive order, rescind the 2019 immigrant trust directive, and reset the clock. You know, Senator Sweeney brought up a good point about prisons, but I look at it the opposite way. You could close your jails to save money, or you could monetize your jails the way the Bergen County Jail was monetized by holding federal detainees. They were making $5 million a year from the federal government. There's a way to monetize it. Why aren't we talking about monetizing New Jersey Transit assets? Why aren't we talking about changing the way we fund our education and dealing with the pension problem, the $175 billion in unfunded future liabilities? They did it in Wisconsin, Act 10, and they took a budget deficit of $3.6 billion and turned it into a $900 million surplus in 1 year. Now, if you can start to do those practical ideas in New Jersey, look at the Rutgers budget alone. I'll just tell you a quick story. So it was actually cheaper for my wife Jody and I to send our daughter to London for school, room, board, and tuition, than it would have been to send her to Rutgers in-state. Yet Rutgers University has a $5.1 billion budget, and if you look at their budget, 24 cents on the dollar comes from the New Jersey taxpayers. It's $1 billion a year. That ought to be line item vetoed on day one. We've got to get control of spending. You solve the illegal immigration problem by going back to enforcing federal detainer orders, working with ICE. You know, I've been to the border. I've been on the ride-alongs with ICE. This is something that can be done in the first year, and you're talking about saving billions of dollars. This doesn't get done without tax cuts to generate economic growth and massive spending cuts. We ought to be monetizing the assets of New Jersey Transit. There are at least $8 to $10 billion that you could look at in this current budget to say we could cut that and pass that on as savings to the taxpayers.
For 20 years, you've heard the same thing about taxes and spending and budgets and reform. Same exact thing. You rewind 5 years, same conversation. 10 years, same conversation. Some of you have been here much longer, and you hear the same thing. Now we know for certain that there's too much government in New Jersey, and there's layers in schools and municipalities, and the consolidation is necessary, consolidation in different departments. There hasn't been the will or appetite to do that in Trenton is the reality. And unless you culturally change how Trenton operates, that will continue to be the common thread there, and nothing will get done. You could talk about unfunded mandates. I go back to what I said earlier, is that being a mayor, similar to Sean, we understand unfunded mandates as well as you in the private sector understand unfunded mandates. Most of my family is in the private sector and entrepreneurs, so I understand that component of it, but certainly see when Trenton says something that's well-intentioned and it's a cost to us that we have to figure out how that impacts us. Unless you have an appetite for boldness down there, nothing will change in Trenton. You pay, at the end of the day, you pay a corruption tax to live and operate in New Jersey. What do I mean by that? I mean by that the structure of government is inherently tainted in a way that it is never incentivized to make those changes that you desperately need and that taxpayers desperately need. We've had a conversation over the last year about ballot reform. Some of you follow that very closely. Some of you follow that from the peripheral. Why is that important? It's important because when you don't have competitive primaries and you don't have competitive elections, you get the status quo down in Trenton that is more interested in the title and the job than actual meaningful reform. And that, at the end of the day, is the thread that has to change to start if you are ever going to get the cultural change that you need to do bold things down there that you know are necessary. And we could talk all day about spending. I mean, spending is definitely a problem. Last month, the NJBIA allocates $7 million to have, I guess, SummerSlam or allocate dollars towards that. A reasonable person would say, probably not the best use of funds when you're talking about the budget gaps here. I think we would all agree upon that. You will never get change until you get change to the structure of government and accountability. And accountability ultimately means accountability to the public and accountability to you as well. And that is why ballot change and change of structure and primaries are inherently important. I'm running a different type of campaign. Some of you might have read about it, and we're trying to create that accountability because I think it's inherently important if you are going to be a different type of governor that inherently is going to do things like constitutional conventions and consolidation and actually deal outside of those special interest bosses. You need to create a different sort of culture where that corruption tax that you all pay, which is basically the status quo, needs to change. And that's where it starts. And then everything else that I think was set up here, minus the focus on immigration as the core problem, but everything else that was set up here, I think is valid. But you need cultural change in order to get that done. And it starts really at the ballot.
I'm a union iron worker. You know what I mean? I didn't go to college. I went through the trades. And when you look at studies for people, like for employment, a lot of people change careers 8 to 12 times during their lifetime. If you join the iron workers, you can stay an iron worker until it's time to retire. You know what I mean? Which is a good job. Plumbers, who isn't always looking for a good plumber or an electrician? You know what I mean? Those guys make good money, guys and gals, because, you know, our trades are, have women and men in them now. It's a great thing. You know, we really went after trying to get more women into our trades. But investing, Rich, in a smart way in higher education is critically important. New Jersey is the medicine chest. We hear that, right? We're the medicine chest of the nation. But they're expanding in other places. They're based here, but if you go to MIT, they've built $1.5 billion worth of investment around MIT. So I look at higher education as a business, honestly, where you can generate the types of workforce that will bring the businesses to this state. You know, the thing that upset me, like I said, the most is when I started looking at this, because New Jersey has their problems. But I would really appreciate when we do something right, that the business community champions it. You know what I mean? Because you're the leaders. You're the ones that are out there. People read the books, read the journals. New Jersey, the BIA or Chamber of Commerce says New Jersey's horrible. Well, anyone looking at that, Rick, is not going to want to come here. Now, we do have challenges, but I believe we got the greatest state in the nation. It's the most educated, it's the most diverse. I'm a lifelong resident. I will be here till the day I die, and then they'll plant me here. But this is a place, because I love this state, and we all should care about the state, and everybody up here I know loves this state. We all have just different ideas, but making the smart investments, like I said, I was there for a long time. Nothing changes overnight. That's the problem in New Jersey. When we fix the pension problem, everyone's like, it's going to be fixed tomorrow? No, it wasn't broke overnight. It takes time. And we did work together, and I was proud we were able to get the funding. And think about how heartbreaking it is that we're paying $7.2 billion for something that should be $600 million. That's a lot of money, but we had an obligation to make that pension payment. Thank you.
My parents chose to immigrate to this country. My mom's from Jamaica, my dad's from New Zealand, and they picked the United States. They specifically picked New Jersey because of a number of reasons. My mom, being a math teacher in Jamaica, said we want to go to a place where we've got the best schools, and New Jersey fit the bill. Wanted a place where my dad could find employment, although he had to travel all over to get it, and New Jersey fit the bill. But even as a kid, I knew that New Jersey was a hard place for my parents to afford, right? Just barely able to kind of get by and support my brother and I. And as I talk to residents throughout the state, and I speak to all of you, I think the answer is the same, right? Anytime we look and say we're going to look to help this group over that group or change the structure, that structure that impacts one over another, we're missing the point. New Jersey is a great place. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to do business, but it's a hard place to afford. It's the hard place to make sure that your bottom line works. And as I look and talk to every single resident, I say the same thing to you. We've got to look at a number of things to make sure that this state remains competitive, continues to draw people to this state, but also looks at your bottom line expenses and talks about everything in a comprehensive, collective way. Because it's not just how much do you pay in taxes, and that's important. And certainly I commit to looking at that to make sure we're competitive in the region in terms of the taxes that we pay. But it also matters in terms of what are we doing about the rising healthcare costs, and how do we help solve that and fix that problem so that it's not a cost burden on you, but also the people that you employ and bring into the state. How do we make sure we continue to maintain those top schools so that the workforce that we're producing can meet your needs, and the needs now and the needs in the future, but also draw that top quality candidate to make sure that we're here. How do we get rid of that red tape? And I say that, as the mayor said, as a mayor myself, and I'll just say Montclair's doing pretty great as well, Mayor Fulop, but here's a place where we've seen those challenges, especially during COVID, and had to figure out a way with shrinking budgets. When we faced a loss of dollars with people commuting in the city, we figured out a way to maintain our AAA bond rating, support our small businesses, get rid of so much of that red tape that was in the way, those redundancies that also cost you money, the time that costs you money. We've got to look at all these pieces comprehensively to say, when we eliminate those costs, right, one way or another, you can keep more dollars to reinvest in your business, make sure that your bottom line is doing well. And that's the same thing for every family in New Jersey as well. We've got to make this place more affordable. We've got to make sure we continue to draw people to this state, celebrate the great things that we have, but continue to allow the growth that we all know that we need.
All right, you're watching coverage of NJBIA's annual public policy forum featuring 5 New Jersey gubernatorial candidates in 2025. We'll continue the conversation after these brief words.
Calm before the storm? No, thank you. This is Jim's time to shine. And Mike's. And Jennifer's. Helmets? Check. Drones? Check. Checking that thing we just checked? Double check. We ain't got time to chill. We're out here driving this thing. This is when we get to work. To keep you connected. No matter what. Connect before the storm. Change how we weather them. Connecting changes everything. AT&T.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Mind Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. We now return to NJBIA's annual public policy forum, where 5 candidates for governor in New Jersey explain why they think they should be elected to take office in Trenton next year. Have a look.
You know, the Ciattarellis have been here for 100 years. My grandfather was a very successful contractor for the water company. My parents were very, very successful restaurant owners. I'm a 2-time successful business owner from Main Street. We haven't had a governor with that kind of background before. I think it brings a very unique perspective to the job of making New Jersey a better place to do business. And I will tell you, the one thing that I feel strongest about as governor is making New Jersey a better place to do business. I really do believe of all the challenges we face, and I'll tackle them all, the one that is the easiest of all the heavy lifts is making New Jersey a better place to do business, and that creates a tide, really, that lifts all boats. But let me speak to something else that I think is critically important to the business community. We need a hands-on CEO governor in this state. It's a $57 billion enterprise with 65,000 employees and 9.3 million customers. And you need a governor who's going to appoint a cabinet that is going to run that ship each and every day so it works on behalf of the businesses and the citizens of this state. And right now, we don't have that. I take great pride out of operational efficiencies. My companies were extremely well-oiled. And I don't want to be the governor of a state that isn't well-oiled, or that there isn't some type of very synergistic relationship between departments, as I described earlier today, for example, Department of Labor and Department of Education. So it's not just the policies we'll put in place to make this a better place to do business. You want a state government that's going to be a partner, and it can't be a good partner unless it's a well-oiled machine. As your governor, I will take great pride in the way we run our shop here in New Jersey. And one other thing I just want to touch upon that'll be a much more expanded conversation. You know, our suburbs are magnificent, but suburbs are not the engines of economic growth. Thriving cities are the engines of economic growth. And we do not see economic vibrancy in places like Newark or Trenton or Atlantic City. Do we have some pockets of success in some cities? You bet we do. But on another day, I hope to discuss with you my plan to revitalize, create a renaissance, if you will, in our urban centers so that we can get this state economy firing on all cylinders. Thank you again for your attention today.
If there's one thing that I would hope you take away regarding me, and I don't know many of you personally, I hope to meet you, is that we're running a different type of campaign. Change the system of government, create more accountability, and then ultimately very, very detailed on policy and move things forward in a concrete way similar to what we did in Jersey City by outlining in detail what we will be able to do. Not every municipality is Jersey City, they're each different, but the same playbook as it relates to the thought process on detailed policy is what's important here, because we think that you deserve it. I said earlier that for 20 years you've heard the same thing, and for 20 years you've got the same outcome. And we are a home rule where municipalities have a disproportionate amount of influence here in New Jersey. And that's why I'm telling you that if you do the same thing and elect somebody that doesn't have experience on the municipal level understanding this in painstaking detail, you will get the same outcome. Phil Murphy, 8 years, but he came from where? He was the ambassador from Germany. No experience on the ground here when he got here, learning on the job. Prior to that, Chris Christie, U.S. attorney, no experience understanding the minutia of day-to-day being an administrator in a city and the challenges that you deal with working with the business community, accountability as an executive. Prior to that, John Corzine, no experience with regards to being an executive and understanding the details of minutia of government. Florio didn't come either. Jim McGreevy was there for a small period of time, so we'll give that a pass. But the reality is, what I'm going to tell you is that if you do the same thing and you elect the same type of person that doesn't understand these, that isn't willing to outline for you in detail, not in platitudes, that isn't talking to you about wholesale change to some of the things that you're concerned about, and isn't honest with you on the things that they're going to do that you may not like, then they're not the person for you ultimately. Then you're going to be in the same seat in 4 years and again in 8 years talking about the same exact issues. I hope you take some time to learn a little bit about my background, whether it's the Marine Corps, whether it's the private sector, whether it's being the mayor of Jersey City, and learn a little bit more about what we're going to do for Jersey City, and do for New Jersey. It is, I think, a different type of opportunity for the state, and I hope you join us along the way.
Steve, every person you mentioned there was somehow connected to government. So as the only non-government, non-political outsider entrepreneur, I can tell you that our state's going to be a lot better off when we have leaders that are actually innovators, that come from the private sector and understand what it's like to manage a P&L, manage millions of dollars for corporations, actually start a business and sign the front of the paycheck instead of just the back of the paycheck. We're going to need that. And I think a lot of what our state and perhaps our country has been missing is that we have people that are in politics because politics have become their career. I haven't spent 35 years in politics. I haven't spent time as a mayor or an elected official. What I have done is spent time as a Marine, as a father, as a business innovator and a leader, and now as a communicator. And I can tell you, as a communicator, I've been listening for 10 years. And New Jersey, there's no buffer between me and the audience, and I've heard all of it. And I can tell you, most people in New Jersey are sick and tired of all of the political talking points and the rhetoric. It's very easy to talk about clean energy. You know what, though? Every time we hear about clean energy and green energy, nobody ever talks about how much it's going to cost you as a consumer. No one ever talks about the actual efficiency. You know, wind and solar are disasters when it comes to cost and efficiency. We ought to be innovating into nuclear power. We should be building micronuclear plants. We ought to be refurbishing and reinvesting billions of dollars in our natural gas infrastructure. We ought to be taking a page out of what Texas is doing with waste management, harnessing that methane coming out of the landfills and actually powering homes. We need innovators. And when I say work at home, let me be very clear. There's a label that is out there for parents that stay home to raise their kids. They're called stay-at-home moms, typically. I think that job is one of the hardest that you have to do. Any mom will tell you how hard that job is. And too many moms in this state have to not only work at home as mom and manager of the household, but then they have to go out and get an outside job because it's simply too expensive to live here. We need a governor who understands that. There ought to be tax incentives and credits to that family that makes a decision to say, we want to have one parent raising our kids. There's nothing wrong with incentivizing those kinds of choices, but we don't have any out-of-the-box thinkers because too many people, including everybody on both sides of the aisle in this field for governor in 2025, they think like government officials. We need someone to start thinking like New Jerseyans, like parents, like entrepreneurs, people who think on behalf of the people of New Jersey who just want their government to work for them. They want the Department of Labor to answer the phone. They want DOT and DEP to get out of the way so that we can do things like mitigate flooding by dredging our rivers. All of those things have to happen, but it's only going to happen when you get somebody outside of the system who is not afraid to be labeled and attacked and take all the hits on your behalf. And I strongly believe that I am that candidate, and I'm looking forward to many ongoing conversations with some of the great folks in this room. Thank you for having us.
I agree with everything I've heard so far in terms of, look, this is about the experience that someone is coming to this position with. It's about their lived experience. It's about the experience that they've had. I shared with you a little bit of my childhood and certainly how I got started here. But I'll also say this. I think experience does matter in terms of not only what do you want to do, but understanding that you have to know how to do it to get it done in New Jersey. I say that as somebody who, as a mayor and council person for 12 years, has learned that experience and understands what it takes to be in those spots where you've got to navigate systems, where you've got to change systems, where you've got to make sure that you're dealing with challenges that affect the residents each and every day. But I also say this as somebody who, as a high school science teacher, right, in the classroom for 15 years or so, I understand when I'm talking to families, and oftentimes many of them small business owners or others, and they're sharing their challenges and experiences and what they're trying to do to support their families. That's what we see each and every day. I share it as somebody who is the head of an organization for, over a decade now, and certainly as president, with over 400 employees, where we're trying to figure out all those challenges around healthcare costs and the dynamic of work from home and making sure your business can work and support your customers, right? Your users, your members. These are spaces that I think experience does matter, right? And understanding the challenges, as I go back to this, as somebody with 2 young kids myself, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, living the New Jersey that we're in, and understanding all the different dynamics from all those different perspectives, somebody who's been in the north part of the state to the south, and as educators every single spot in between, understands that, hey, listen, this at the core is still about making sure New Jersey is someplace that's affordable, that people can maybe have a moment to take advantage of the great things that we have to offer, can support their families without 2, 3, 4 jobs, can be a business that's not getting crushed by the cost of ever-rising healthcare. All the things that we are always juggling with our different roles and positions matter. They matter to keeping this state a great place to be. And certainly, I can tell you, and I humbly ask for your support to be the next governor of New Jersey, because I do agree. It's time to do something different. We can't constantly elect the same thing and expect some different outcome. And I think that finally having an educator who could be the next governor is something that would bring great benefit to this state and would allow us to interact in ways that I think serves our communities. And certainly with those additional experiences as a mayor, council person, as a president of an organization, I think all bring those skills that are going to be very, very important as we face shrinking budgets, challenges at the federal level, and so many other things that we don't even know what will be coming our way.
I got a history. I have a voting history. And it's easy to say minimum wage wasn't good enough, not fast enough, but we did it. We put it within indexing. We got it done. Paid family leave came from my 75-day experience in the neonatal unit, watching families and living it myself. I'm proud of those things. I'm also proud that we weren't afraid to take on tough issues. In fact, sometimes the state police had to escort me through the halls of Trenton because I was willing to take on the fight because it was worth fighting for. The people in New Jersey are absolutely worth fighting for. The state's worth fighting for. Look, again, we had a big fight at one point with the teachers, right? We got beyond it. We negotiated a new health care plan. I was proud of that. We fixed the pension system. Did anyone ever dream that we could get $7.2 billion into the pension fund? The answer is no. That killed us with Wall Street. What you get with me is I'm someone that gets in the weeds. We did Path to Progress. We worked with the teachers union to do a bill to start consolidations of schools. Good news, we got 70 school districts that are actually studying consolidation now. We had 3 school districts last year actually voted, the individual towns, to merge. So you work with the groups that you're in front of to find the solution. We're never going to agree on everything, but I am the most qualified person, and nothing against teacher Sean because I love him, my son's one. It's time for a union ironworker. Thank you.
All right, thanks to Jack Ciattarelli, Steve Fulop, Bill Spadea, Sean Spiller, and Steve Sweeney for taking part in NJBIA's Public Policy Forum. Thanks to our moderator, Rich Thigpen from PSE&G. Thanks to our producer, Vinny Civitillo, for putting the coverage together. And thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Mind Your Business. We'll see you next time.